Vice President of the Minnesota State College Student Association, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the Virginia campus of Mesabi Range College. I would like to thank Debate Minnesota and our sponsors for coordinating this debate. This event would not be possible without the student volunteers that work backstage, so thank you very much. If you have questions for both of the candidates, please write your questions down on the paper being passed out and return that to the volunteers. We will have time for a limited number of questions after the debate. We ask that the gallery hold their applause throughout the debate. However, we can make an exception to the rule right now as we welcome today's moderator, Barbara Rielts, and the two candidates, Congressman Cravaack and former Congressman Virigina.
Welcome. I'm Barbara Rielts. I'm News Director for KVJR, KDLH, CW, and My9. My9 is going to be carrying this broadcast live right now and also again tonight at 7. I'll remind you of that before we go. Today's debate is sponsored by Debate Minnesota along with the Minnesota State College Student Association. The Debate Minnesota Board of Directors are from different backgrounds and political persuasions. However, they all share a common concern about the impact of negative advertising and money in politics and the lack of civility in our political discourse. Debate Minnesota proposes that we take a lesson from Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas and carry our issues back to the public square, where the real power lies in a nation, with you, the people. And as with the famous Lincoln-Douglas debates of 1858, they believe the best way to restore civility in an election process is through content-rich, in-depth discussions of ideas and issues that are important to all of the people. We'll begin our debate with 1-minute opening statements from each candidate. The participants had a coin toss a moment ago backstage to determine the order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question with a 1-minute follow-up. The order will rotate throughout the debate, and each candidate will be given the opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. We want to thank our timekeepers. There's students out there in the audience, Morgan and Maria, for helping us keep us on schedule and on track. When you look out there, they'll have their signs and help you keep on time and on schedule. We wish to remind you now, and this is important to all of you, please hold your applause until the conclusion of today's debate. We're asking for no cheers, no jeers, no signs. I think you had to leave your signs outside. And I have been asked to tell you that if there is a disruption, we have police here and apparently they will escort you out. So I ask you to please follow the rules and be civil, as I'm sure you all will be. All right, gentlemen, are you ready?
Ready.
All right. And our first question will go to Congressman Cravaack. The national debt in the United States is currently very close to $16 trillion. I'm sure you're aware. Unemployment across the country currently sits at 7.8%. Some have called us nearing a fiscal cliff. What it's going to take to set this country in a better direction, I want you to tell me whether it's spending cuts, tax increases, or some alternative suggestion. I'm sorry, I've forgotten to give you your opening statements, and we don't want to jeopardize the Debate Minnesota protocol here. So each of you gets a 1-minute opening statement, and we'll start with you. Keep that question in mind. We'll come back to it. Mr. Cravaack.
Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate it. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy days to be with us. If I could, before we start, let's just take a moment and think about our fellow Americans who are on the East Coast right now, enduring Hurricane Sandy and all the trials and tribulations, and our thoughts and prayers go out to them. It's truly been an honor and a privilege to serve these last couple of years. And through these last couple of years, we've been able to put out some pretty dynamic pro-growth, pro-job legislation that is specific to the range. Like, for example, our Buy American Steel Amendment. That is an amendment that makes sure that American steel is used by American workers on American projects. Our expediting of our procedures for getting for like polymet and also twin metals, which is going to bring a lot of jobs in the district. My goal is to bring jobs into the 8th District of Minnesota, good paying jobs. I want to be the Bakken fields of precious metal mining and taconite mining. It's truly been a privilege and an honor. I look forward to it. The newspapers have been endorsing us for our vision of the future, along with our constituent services. I thank Debate Minnesota for Barbara for being here today with us. I also thank the college for hosting us, and I of course thank Congressman for being here as well. And I look forward to a spirited and issue-oriented debate. Thank you.
Mr. Nolan.
Thank you. I'd like to begin, if I could, by thanking everyone, the sponsors, Congressman Cravaack, the audience, the media, for partaking and making this debate possible. And like Chip said, I hope we, and I'm sure we will have a spirited, issue-oriented debate. I would like to introduce my my hunting and fishing partner, my #1 advisor, my best friend, and my wife of the last 28 years, Mary Nolan. I am a 4th-generation native here of the 8th Congressional District, the Iron Range, the Cuyuna Range. My family's been here for 6 generations. I was born here, raised my family here, built my business here. I am an integral part of this district. I know there's no legal requirement for anything of that sort, but it helps make you a good representative for the district, and that's the view that I intend to bring to Washington, and I look forward to debating the issues. We've got a pretty good choice of this one, and looking forward to the debate.
All right, back to the fiscal cliff, because that's what some are saying the nation is headed for. And if you could start, Mr. Cravaack, talking about what it's going to take to set this country back on a safer path.
And in my opinion, is a pro-growth tax reform, which we have passed in the House, making a simpler, flatter, fairer system, and to incentivize, especially the small business owner, for creating jobs. 7 out of 10 people are employed by small businesses in the 8th, or throughout the country. I would probably say that's higher in the 8th district. So we have to incentivize those small businesses to create those jobs, have the confidence again to expand and create jobs. Also in the corporate region, we need to bring down, we have the highest corporate tax rates in the world. We need to bring those down to at least 25%, which is a global average. I would even presume it might be a little bit lower to incentivize businesses that have gone offshore to come back to the United States. Because when I talk to CEOs and COOs, they want to bring jobs back to the United States, but we have a very complicated tax code, and the amount of regulations and restrictions are truly impeding growth within the United States. So my feeling is to have a pro-growth tax reform, along with simplifying the amount of regulations and restrictions that are being placed on our small business owners. That is the way to the recovery of expanding jobs. Now, when you want to increase taxes, even Bernie Marcus said that even a brain-dead economist knows that when you increase taxes, it's at the cost of jobs. The proposed tax increases by the current administration is telling us that it's going to affect over 53% of small business income. Now, Ernst & Young has come out with an independent study saying if that is to occur, then it is going to be at the cost of 710,000 jobs throughout the country. Every job is vitally important, and we have to give the confidence to the small business owner to expand and create those jobs, to create the demand that we all want to start moving this economy forward.
Mr. Nolan.
Pro-growth tax reform and policies, as the Congressman refers to, has become really a euphemism for letting the rich get richer, while the poor get poorer, and the middle class in this country gets crushed. Clearly, we are in a fiscal crisis. I reject the notion that Medicare and Social Security are in any way responsible for that. On the contrary, there may be some problems there, and we know how to go about fixing them. But there's other factors that have gotten us into this financial crisis that we're in. We need to stop the war in Afghanistan, and stop it now in the so-called nation building abroad. They're costing us trillions of dollars. We need to balance our budget and to start rebuilding America, our roads, our bridges, our schools, our hospitals. Quite frankly, we need to do away with the tax cuts for the super rich in this country. Again, use that money to balance our budget. Start rebuilding America. We need to do away with the tax cuts that provide incentives for companies and corporations to move their jobs and their manufacturing overseas, and reverse that. Incentivize them to do their manufacturing here at home, where it belongs and where it creates good jobs. There is so much that needs to be done here in America. And if we do that, we will put together a real, true pro-growth economy that creates jobs, that improves the quality of our life, that balances our budget, that puts our fiscal house in order. And that's the task before us, and that's what we have to do. Thank you.
Mr. Cravaack, do you have a follow-up?
I do. You know, the thing about it is we have a plan. We have a plan that passed the House, and it's waiting for action on the Senate. We have a plan. I would love to entertain another plan, even to take a look at it, but quite frankly, there is no other plan. We have a plan that has passed the House and moving forward. And it's kind of, we've heard this before. I mean, Geithner came to one of the committee meetings and says, we don't have a plan, we don't have a solution, we know we just don't like yours. Well, let's have another plan. Love to take a look at another plan, but as far as I know, the economists are telling us by having a pro-growth tax reform, along with eliminating the spending, is going to create jobs in this country. That is how you create jobs, by reining in our excessive tax code and excessive amount of regulations and restrictions that impede the small business owner, and corporations for that matter, of creating jobs in this country.
Mr. Nolan, do you have a follow-up?
Well, I would, certainly you have a plan. It's called the Ryan plan. We call it here the Ryan Cravaack plan. But what it provides for is more spending on the military, less spending on domestic development. It provides for the elimination of Medicare as we know it. It provides for cuts in things like Pell Grants for kids to go to great colleges like we have here. And it provides for an expanding of military spending and an expansion of tax cuts for the super rich. The corporations in America are already sitting on several trillions of dollars. The banks are sitting on several trillions of dollars. They don't need more tax cuts. What they need is an economy that rebuilds this middle class. We need to do away with this trickle-down economics that are destroying this economy and the opportunities that have normally been associated with the American experience. We need to build this country from the middle out and from the bottom up, not from the top down.
All right, staying with the topic of national spending for a minute here, according to the Budget Control Act, on January 2nd, unless Congress intervenes, a 10-year, $600 billion across-the-board spending cut will hit the Pentagon. That would cut about 8% from its current budget. Mr. Nolan, what's your position on that?
Well, I think we've gotten ourselves into sequestration or this fiscal cliff as a result of the fact that the Congress has not done its job. I served in the Congress representing part of the 8th District here earlier in my life. And quite frankly, we worked 48 out of 52 weeks. This Congress, I believe, worked 32 out of 52 weeks. For the most part, worked a couple days a week. And they point fingers at one another. Yeah, the Senate won't go along with us, and the Senate saying the House won't go along with us. And the fact is that this has been recognized nationally as probably the most non-productive Congress maybe in the history of the United States. And I think it's irresponsible to allow this sequestration to go forward. To be sure, there needs to be cuts in federal spending. But as we look at a changing economy, a changing culture, the new discoveries, the new technologies, the constant evolution of things, we always have to be looking at our government selectively and not engaging in across-the-board cuts. But I'm a businessman. I know about budgets and the importance of balancing them. And the fact is, you don't just do across-the-board cuts. You cut where you're not getting a return on your investment, and you invest more where you are getting a return on your investment. And that's what we need to do here. So, Chip, regardless of the outcome of this election, I hope that if you, well, you will be the congressman until the end of the year, and I hope you guys will go back into session, go to work, and do the job that needs to be done, and make the selective cuts where they need to be, and quite frankly, do expanding spending if you see an area where we can get a better return on our dollar.
Mr. Cravaack.
Sticking with the issue in regards to the budget itself, All due respect, Congressman, you're just wrong in the aspect that for military spending, we'll have the lowest spending in percentage of GDP since 1948 at 3.65%. And involving overseas contingency funding, that is under the President's bill, is only 2.7% of the budget. So in no way would even begin to eliminate the actual deficit spending. One of the concerns, I voted against the Budget Control Act for one of the couple of concerns. One is right before the vote, Standard & Poor's came in and said, if you vote for this bill, we are going to downgrade you. I took them at their word. And sure enough, after we voted for the bill, which I voted against, Standard & Poor's came out for the first time in United States history, the creditworthiness of the United States was downgraded. In addition to that, sequestration across the board cuts. I'm a Naval Academy graduate. I just so happened to have my 30th Naval Academy reunion. A couple of my buddies now have stars on their shoulders. I asked them what would sequestration do to them. They told me it would directly impact the ability for them to fulfill the mission of protecting the United States. I also took them at their word as well. What the sequestration will do to our national defense is that we will have the lowest ground forces since 1940, the smallest Navy since 1915, and the smallest Air Force in the existence of its history. I'm also on Homeland Security. I can tell you that the threats of the United States have not diminished since 9/11. They have increased. And now is not the time to be cutting back our military. The United States military did not cause this deficit and this debt. We should not bear on the backs of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines the recovery.
Mr. Nolan, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Well, Chip, the fact is military spending has increased, and you just have to look at the mathematics. And we're talking about balancing the budget here. We're not talking about how one thing is relative to another, relative to the GDP. Military spending has gone up. And I couldn't agree more with you that we need to make sure that the men and women who serve our country are paid well and taken well care of. But that doesn't mean, Chip, that we need to spend $50 billion air conditioning the green zone in Baghdad. That doesn't mean we need to spend $20 billion moving the military base in downtown Okinawa to rural Okinawa so they won't see it. It doesn't mean we need another $30 billion base in the Northern Marianas. There are ways that we can cut military spending. We spend $1 trillion in Iraq, we spend $1 trillion in Afghanistan, and to suggest that that hasn't contributed to the financial crises that we're in is just to ignore the realities of the cost of those course of choice.
Do you have a follow-up?
Our overall spending within the last couple of years alone has increased 29%. We're expecting, because of sequestration, to take $1 trillion out of our national defense. This affects everybody in this room, whether Republican, Democrat, Independent. The national security of the United States will be severely diminished, according to the commanders. Now, an interesting note, when Admiral Mike Mullen was in Congress, when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when he came in Congress for a committee, when asked, what is the chief threat of the United States? He didn't say a nuclear Iran. He didn't say the communist Chinese. What he did say, the chief threat of the United States is our debt. And I believe him.
I want to bring this question a little closer to home. One of the Northland's most valuable assets is the 148 fighter wing. With those kind of cuts that could happen, what would you do to make sure that the Duluth-based 148 Air Guard stays stable? Mr. Cravaack.
We work very closely with 148 Bulldogs in addressing this issue. As a matter of fact, when they were trying to take the 24-hour alert mission away from the 148, I had General Morgan in the office explaining to me why they picked the 148. And unfortunately, it was bean counters that were making the decision rather than the tactical information of the squadron itself. The 148 is a unique, fantastic squadron. It flies Block 50 aircraft. They have 24-hour alert missions. They not only do it in the Duluth area, but they do it around the world, and they do it better than anybody else. I have my 9G pin. I was able to go fly with those guys and pull 9Gs, and they are the best of the best. Now, in addition to that, by making it an active association, because our guys and gals on the 148th, they truly are the experts on those Block 50 aircraft. They break them down completely and then bring them, put them right back together again. They're exceptional airmen. They truly are the brain trust when it comes to that Block 50, where your active duty guy, you know, it's 3 years here, 3 years there. So by making it an active association, which makes it a more solid squadron and solid command, by making them an active association, the active duty guard guys are training the active duty guys on how best to perform maintenance on the Block 50 aircraft. So I think by making it this an active duty association, along with, we put a moratorium on General Norby making a decision. We sent him back to the drawing board and we said, hey, make a tactical decision. Don't make it being counter decision. I think the 148th will do just fine.
Mr. Nolan, what's your position? Would the 148th be stable?
Well, I think the 148th Flying Division is very important for our national defense. They're in the air 24 hours, 7 days a week, and the F-16s providing important and vital air protection and defense for our country. This is where we need to spend our money instead of air conditioning the green zone in Baghdad. And additionally, of course, it's a tremendous asset for the city of Duluth to have it here on our northern border, our northern frontier. There's some 1,000 members, I believe, and I think at least half of them, or close to that, are active duty. I think they add about something like $90 or $100 million to the economy of Duluth. And while they're busy providing important and vital national defense for us here in this country, they're also, very much engaged and involved in the community and providing a wide range of services that are very helpful, very important to the community. That's where we need to be spending our defense dollars, where we're really getting a good bang for our buck, and we're not in some faraway land in some nook and cranny of the world, providing, trying to be policemen of the world. We're providing some real national defense, and in a way that contributes enormously also to our community at the same time.
Well, I thought maybe we found an agreement on an issue, but then I saw that little smile, so maybe you do have a follow-up.
No, I was actually smiling because I said, look, we have bipartisan agreement, right?
There you go. Well, so maybe we don't need to follow up on that question. How about if we move on to health care? On March 23rd, 2010, President Obama signed the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act into law. It's kind of evolved into being called Obamacare, and I know the president was quoted, he said recently he kind of likes that. So Obamacare was designed to move the focus of health care from treating the sick to keeping people healthy. Since its inception, it's been very divisive. The two of you have espoused very different opinions on the measure. What are its pros and cons, and do you think it will be repealed? And we'll start with Mr. Nolan.
Well, I think the Affordable Care Act is a good beginning in many respects. It provides that an additional 30 million Americans will have health insurance, and it's health insurance that provides health care and preventive services in a way that's much more affordable for those people who now are going to the emergency rooms, where it's much more expensive and oftentimes too late to catch medical problems before they become very expensive. Some of the other pros are, of course, that it provides mandatory preventive services. It requires mandatory coverage for pre-existing conditions. And it's just a very good beginning. And we don't know for sure how well all the aspects of it are going to work out. Anytime you implement a program of this size and this scope, to be sure, there's probably going to have to be some changes made, but I don't think it should be repealed by any measure. One of the examples of some of the benefits to it that are not apparent is that right now, everybody in this room, we may all be insured by the same company, but if you get into if we're all sitting here in a waiting room, we all have a different policy, and the administration of that just becomes unbelievably costly. And this bill has some procedures for streamlining that entire entire administrative process. The insurance industry estimated that it might save us as much as $1 trillion a year just in administrative costs. So we want to see how this thing unfolds and see how it works, make changes where it's necessary. But it's very important to get all of Americans insured in some kind of a good universal health insurance plan.
Mr. Cravaack, I don't think you feel the same.
No, I've been dealing with the Obamacare for, gosh, the last 2 years, as soon as we stepped into Congress. And one of the things that I took back, just as a citizen, and looking at when the Affordable Care Act was actually voted in, no one read the bill. Admittedly, no one read it. It did not go through the normal committee process. It came to the floor 2 hours prior to the vote by Speaker Pelosi at the time. No one had the opportunity to read it. 2,700 pages, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of references, and it's even now the bureaucrats in Washington are only halfway through it, and they've created another 30,000 pages of rules and regulations, and nobody really knows how it's going to affect the people. That is pretty much for starters. No one read the bill. We've already seen some bad parts of the bill. We were able to repeal the 1099. That was going to adversely affect small businesses. In addition, the Class Act, which even Administrator Sebelius came in committee and said it is completely unsustainable. That was for long-term health insurance. That people that were paying the long health insurance was being robbed and taken over into Obamacare. What it's doing to Medicare, for example, creation of the IPAB, the Independent Payment Advisory Board, which is an unelected, unaccountable board by 15 members that will be making healthcare decisions and for payments of what our seniors are going to be reimbursed. And as a doctor told me that it has worked very closely with Obamacare, he said, you may have health insurance, but you may not have health care, because I may not do the procedure for what the IPAB is willing to pay. And with that, you can't even use your own money with that doctor and say, I'll pay the difference. So there's a lot of problems with Obamacare, but in 2 minutes, it's tough to talk about the pros and cons, and I'll yield back.
Mr. Nolan, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
All right, real quick, you know, there are a number of factors that have to be considered here. One is, Chip pointed out that nobody read the bill, and I'm not sure I know about that, whether that's correct or not, but I do know that the Congress deliberated and debated that thing for the better part of a year. So I think most people had a pretty good idea of what was in it. You say we don't know how it's going to be affected by small business. Well, I'm a small businessman, and I know anybody under 50 employees are exempt. And when it comes to iPads, Chip, you know, if you did read the bill, you would know that the panels are accountable. That is reviewable by the Congress of the United States. And you should also know that private insurance companies have their own little iPads. At some point, someone has to decide whether or not we're going to reimburse the voodoo doctor in the same manner that we reimburse the cardiologist. So that's just a fact of life about insurance. At some point, someone has to sit there and decide who's going to pay for what. But it is reviewable by the Congress.
Mr. Cravaack, 1 minute.
I talk to small business owners all the time. And I just talked to one a couple weeks ago that has 55 employees. He said that he's letting 5 people go because he wants to stay below the 50 mark. I've also talked to other larger corporations, like Stryker, for example, in health medical devices. They're letting 5% of their people go directly because of Obamacare. And though the IPAB may be reviewable for a member of Congress, they can't do anything. They can suggest, but they can't enforce. Right now, if you're having a problem with Medicare, I can do something about it because I'm your elected representative, and the bureaucrats have to listen to an elected representative. If the IPAB is unaccountable and unelectable by anyone, I really don't have a power as your representative to assist you with a Medicare problem.
All right, since you brought up the topic of Medicare, let's talk about it. It's an area in which you two have quite different approaches. Mr. Cravaack, you support a program called Premium Support, saying something has to be done differently or Medicare will simply go away. And Mr. Nolan, you've said Medicare works, should be left alone, but what about when the money runs out? So could you talk a little bit about Medicare for me and how you would plan to handle it? Mr. Cravaack, you go first.
Well, we have a plan. We have a plan, a House plan that has been introduced. Everybody needs to know that Medicare is insolvent in 2022. That means there will be a 26%, if we do nothing, there will be a 26% reduction in services by Medicare so that they can remain solvent. We have a plan, but if you're 55 years and older, nothing changes for you. Everything remains the same. But if you're 54 years and younger, like my generation, we're going to have to do something, because if we don't do something, we will have nothing. So it's almost like a dereliction of duty. The people of the 8th District sent me to Washington to make hard decisions. And this is one of those hard decisions that we had to make. We developed a plan that if you're 55 years and younger, because if you're 55 years and older, nothing changes. If you're 54 years and younger, you will have options. You'll be able to, it's very similar to Advantage plan under Medicare now, or it's very similar to what federal employees get right now as well. But so you will have options of what type of insurance plan that you want, whatever pertains to you. One plan is also traditional Medicare. So future seniors will not be spending any more money than current seniors do today, because if you want to have traditional Medicare, you can, or if you want to have full premium support, you can have that as well as a private plan. And if you take the one plan that's less than the full premium support plan, you actually get a rebate.
Mr. Nolan?
What did he say? Chip,
Would you like me to go again?
Chip, here's the deal. Chip, here's the deal. You have a plan. And the Wall Street Journal, the economists, everyone says it's to do away with Medicare as we know it. Give seniors a coupon and tell them to go find their insurance in the private sector. Most analysts say that it would cost seniors an additional $6,000 to $7,000 in out-of-pocket expenses. And here's the deal. In this Ryan budget, and let's get this straight, because here's what happened. You voted to cut $716 billion out of Medicare and to use that money for tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires. Now, the Affordable Care Act also cut $716 billion out of Medicare, turned around, put that money right back into Medicare, used that money to close the donut hole and to extend the life of Medicare, because to be sure, we have to do some things to make sure that Medicare is economically viable for the future. But in doing that, through the Affordable Care Act, the long-term financial viability of Medicare was extended by 8 years. And had your plan gone through, Medicare would be facing bankruptcy in the next year and a half. So let's get the truth out there, and all the fact checkers have checked this thing, Chip, and your allegations with regard to my support for the plan that I've just outlined has been, all the fact checkers have said that your allegations are ridiculous, they're untruthful, they're misleading. The American Association of Retired People have said so, and you got to start telling the truth here about what your plan does. It saves Medicare by doing away with it, and I don't think we need that kind of salvation.
Mr. Cravaack?
I'm so glad he brought up the $716 billion. The $716 billion in committee, finally they admitted, can't be used for two different things. You can't use it to extend Medicare, and it's also pay for Obamacare. That's exactly what $716 billion did. It pays for Obamacare. Our seniors are being robbed from Medicare to pay for Obamacare. The PolitiFact lie of the year of 2011 was that we are planning to end Medicare. It's not a voucher system, it's a premium support system, seamless to the Medicare recipient. Now, with $6,400 a year, even Doug Elmendorf, who is the director of Office Management Budget, and said that's a fabricated number. They don't even have the ability to come up with that number. That, again, was fact-checked, found to be incorrect. We have a plan. It's a plan that was actually bounced off Alice Rivlin in the Clinton administration and also other members of Congress. We have a plan. Unfortunately, they don't, other than to let Medicare expire and go bankrupt.
Mr. Nolan?
Well, you know, Chip, the fact checkers found that what you're saying just isn't true. It's not correct. Budget Committee found that there was $716 billion in Medicare that was being used to pay middlemen, providers and insurance companies. And they figured that if those $716 billion were taken out and not paid to the middlemen and put back into Medicare, it would extend the long-term viability of it by a total of 8 years. And Chip, that's what was done. And you voted to take that same $116 billion out, which was the right thing to do. But then you turned around and gave it to tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires instead of putting it right back into Medicare where it belonged.
All right, I want to bring the debate a little closer to home here now. A major dispute is raging in the 8th Congressional District over the potential for mining non-ferrous minerals. Can copper nickel be mined while protecting the environment? And how would you get involved in this issue? And we start with Mr. Cravaack.
I've been involved with PolyMet projects since before I took the oath of office, actually. That was actually one of my first meetings, was a meeting with PolyMet and trying to find out how we could expedite now 8 years and I think $45 million of environmental impact studies to equal one job. So I've been involved with this process. I do believe that we can mine precious metals in a safe, environmental way. We live here. This is our home. I just spoke with PolyMet last week. Very good progress. Their modeling concepts are complete. They're going into the testing phase, and they're moving forward. Now, this means jobs. This means 300 to 350 full-time jobs. You can double that, and those will be direct ancillary jobs on top of that. And these are good, high-paying jobs. In addition to that, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of construction jobs for a very long period of time. My goal, I also was able to initiate within the Natural Resources Committee a streamlining amendment which would streamline these projects to 30 months. It does not take away one environmental protection, but what it does do, if the state is doing the same study as a federal program, why are we doing both? Let's do one. Let's streamline this effect to create jobs. Now my goal is to, after the PolyMet project starts winding down, we're going to start spooling up the Ely project, Twin Metals project up in Ely. That's another 2,000 to 2,500 full-time jobs. And in addition to, I mean, we're talking thousands of jobs. It's a different kind of mining. It's an underground slant mine. My goal, my vision for the 8th District of Minnesota is to have people moving into the 8th District for good, high-paying jobs. I truly believe that we can be the Bakken fields of taconite and precious metal mining. That's my goal for the 8th.
Mr. Nolan?
Well, I'm very excited about the potential for mining here in our future. We're sitting on 4 billion tons of some of the world's most precious metals that are so vitally needed in the advanced technologies of our economy. And I too have been involved with mining literally all my life. I grew up here on the Iron Range, the Cayuga Range. We have a magnesium project that's underway just a few miles north of where our family sawmill and pellet factory is located. And it just represents a great opportunity for us to supply so many of the precious metals that are needed in the future economy of this world, and to create jobs, and to build opportunities, and build communities in the process. And we know how to do it, and we know how to do it right. And you know, in the past there was always this argument about whether or not we're going to have jobs or whether or not we're going to protect the environment. I've met with the mining companies as well. They don't have any problem meeting the regulations that provide for clean air and clean water. They do have a problem with the process, and understandably so. I mean, it just clearly takes too long. But the days when you had to choose between one and another, those are over with. And nobody loves the great outdoors any more than the people in the 8th District here. That's what brought many people here. That's what's kept people here. That's what continues to bring people here. We love our forests. We love our lakes. We love our hunting. We love our fishing. And we understand that mining is the backbone of our economy. We are going to do everything possible to make sure that we become the mining region for the future of not only this country and for the world, and we're going to go ahead with it, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right.
So I understand you both agree, you both support mining, but there are differences in your opinion, and it's on how to get there. Mr. Cravaack, if you could follow up for us.
Well, I would just like to bring out a little inconvenient truth that your campaign has been funded by the Conservation and League of Conservation of Voters. That is the parent company, fully funded, I might add, which is the parent company of Minnesota Conservation Minnesota, which was behind actually creation of a plank in the DFL state convention that wanted to eliminate precious metal mining in addition to highly curtail taconite mining altogether. So the inconvenient truth, and also Al Gore also supported you as well, but the thing is, you're saying you're for mining, but the people that are backing you are trying to shut down mining in the 8th District, and then that means jobs. Not allowing to have precious metal mining expand, eliminating that, and also taconite mining as well.
Mr. Nolan.
Well, the people who are backing me, I see many of them here in the room today. They're the United Steelworkers here of Minnesota's 8th Congressional District, and I am doggone proud to have their support. And if you want to look through my financial reports, you'll see contributions from not only the men and women who work in these mines, but also people that work in the corporate offices of these mines too. Mining has been a big part of my life. It always will be. And if you want to talk about who's getting contributions from whom, we can go in there. You know, we can talk about the money your campaign's getting from Las Vegas billionaires and the Koch brothers and the millions of dollars that are pouring in. I don't think we want to go there. I think we can agree that we can. I'd be glad to, but the question's about mining, and the fact is that we apparently both support mining. It's an obviously integral part. It's been part of my life, all my life. Everybody in my neighborhood, everybody in my community worked in the mines, and we've got great opportunities for expanding those opportunities in mining in the future.
We talked a lot about jobs here. What we haven't talked about too much is the environment. And a lot of people, obviously, a lot of people support jobs. A lot of people are concerned about the environment. When we get into this, PolyMet has spent almost 10 years now and $46 million so far to get to where it is at this point. There are other companies not too far behind, but also facing that $46 million. Do we have too many regulations or not enough regulations? Mr. Nolan.
You know, again, I don't think it's a matter of too many or too few. Like I said earlier, I've met with the people at PolyMet and Twin Metals and the other companies. They don't have a problem with meeting the regulations. They believe in clean air and clean water, and they have a great love of the outdoors as well. They do have a legitimate grievance. The PolyMet process should not take, 8, 9, 10 years and, $40, $50 million. We need to expedite that process. And that's the kind of thing that, I think a good congressman could do. Chip, you introduced a bill to expedite the process, but I noticed it didn't have any bipartisan support, didn't have any serious companion legislation over in the Senate side. And I know you've held a lot of meetings and a lot of hearings, but I hear a lot of people say, let's all show and no go. You've had a couple of years to get this project approved, and I don't see it being approved. Maybe there's something going on that the rest of us are unaware of. I have a history both in business and in public office of bringing people together. You can go up here to Bluefin Bay and talk to the owners, and they'll tell you how I got that project approved by getting everybody in the room together and getting it past the DNR objections at the time. You can go talk to the mayor of Albertville, Cornelius Paulson. I saw him the other day, and he was so happy with the fact that I had gone with that city to the EPA offices in Chicago and the EPA offices in Minneapolis and got their projects approved and helped turn that town into a sleepy little town of about 700 to a thriving metropolis of about 7,000. So at some point you got to roll up your sleeves, you got to get everybody in the room together, and you say, we're not getting out of here, we're not leaving, we're going to lock the door if we have to until we come up with an answer, until we come up with a solution, until we get the job done.
Mr. Cravaack.
To answer the question, EPA regulations are probably one of the biggest impediments on growth for mining jobs and also our logging community as well. If you take, Congressman Olin has actually come out and said that EPA regulations create jobs. Well, they might create jobs in Washington, D.C., but they definitely do not create jobs here in the range. I've talked to plenty of mining people in the mining industry and the logging industry, and the EPA has just gone wild these last couple of years, to be honest with you. That's because their funding has increased by 99% as well. So, you know, the regulations, we have the streamlining amendment so that we can get rid of these duplicate amount of regulations, these excessive regulations. We all want to take care of our water and our air. We live here. This is our home. So we want to do that. The streamlining regulation simply does that. It streamlines the regulations so that we can get projects like PolyMet and projects like the Twin Metals project up and running as quickly as possible to create jobs. Jobs at the end of the day is what we're all about. We want to live here. We don't want our children being exported out. Now, as your former opponent and actually your current staffer, Jeff Anderson, said, he actually backed my streamlining amendment, thinking that was on target. You proposed having an institute that would keep mining under the microscope and increasing studies. Well, studies do not make jobs. What we need to do is have jobs, and by creating these streamlining amendments, getting PolyMet rolling again, get the Twin Metals project going, being able to get magnetation to go where it needs to go, get the Saginaw Nugget, the permits that they need. That is how we create jobs. That is how people create demand. That is how this area is going to grow and become prosperous and have two different mining cycles of taconite in addition to precious metals, so the boom and the bust is a little bit equaled out.
Mr. Nolan.
Well,
Chip, there are about 50 basic research centers in the country, and the Republicans did away with the Bureau of Mines in research and development back in the 90s. What I proposed is that we have up here in the 8th District a research institute to develop new technologies. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but it was the University of Minnesota who developed the taconite technology that has brought about such a great boom to our industry. We're not talking about studying reviews and approval procedures. We're talking about fundamental, basic research. Find better ways for us to advance our mining technologies and our industries up here in Minnesota's 8th Congressional District. That proposal's been endorsed by no less than the National Mining Association, the University of Duluth, the Iron Range Natural Resource Center, by the land-grant colleges. If we're going to take full advantage of the great opportunities we have for mining here in the future, we need to be also spending some money on basic research for the technologies of the future. That's how you get these projects approved.
this is a $250 million project. And again, we don't need more studies, we need jobs.
We're not talking about studies, we're talking about basic research.
We need jobs. Actually, Jeff Anderson echoed my belief in that. Now, the thing is, UMD does an excellent job in studying mining. Now, I don't want to have to make a decision for grants. Do I have to pick UMD, or am I going to have to pick a new institute? I think UMD does an exceptional job. I want to keep that program up and running so that we can keep, we can also keep the money into the college. But at the same time, we need to create jobs. We do not continue on with the studies. We have to create the jobs, get the mines open, get people back to work. That's my job.
All right, I want to stay with mining for a minute. I want to talk about switching minerals, though. The demand for iron ore is falling. Might even result in some mines shutting down, at least shutting down some lines next year for a while. What can you, as a congressman, do on behalf of the iron ore mining industry to help give it more stability? And we'll start with you, Mr. Cravaack.
It's the economy. We have to get the economy rolling again. We have to increase the demand for taconite, for steel. We have to have pro-growth tax reform that creates a simpler, flatter, fairer system. We have to have our corporate tax rates come down from 35% down to 25%, which is the global average right now. And again, I've said I tried to talk them into even making it lower, but we have to incentivize businesses to bring jobs back to the United States and getting the economy rolling in. Buying more cars, people having more confidence, and being able to buy the new washing machine. At the same time, we have to talk about regulations. We have to make sure that the excessive amount of regulations that are coming out of Washington right now are cut back. My goal is to have Washington partner with business and say, look, we need to have clean air. We want you to have clean air. How can we work with you to achieve, one, that we get the clean air, and you have a viable product? We've already instituted that. It's called the RAINS Act. We passed it on the House side with bipartisan support, and it's sitting dead in the Senate because Senator Reid won't take it up. It's a good bill. It's a pro-jobs bill. It's a pro-growth bill. And Senator Reid has blocked it from coming to the House floor. To get taconite mining from that boom and bust is to get the economy rolling again. By getting the economy rolling again, there will be a demand for steel, especially on international markets as well. When it's the old saying, when the United States sneezes, the world gets a cold. When the United States economy starts prospering again, the world's economy is going to start prospering again, and the demand will be there.
Mr. Nolan?
Well, I'm going to agree with you again here. We need to get the economy rolling. The difference is how you go about doing that, Jim. And the fact is that we do need to increase demand. And one of the ways you increase demand is by investing some money in the rebuilding of our infrastructure. You voted to cut funding for our infrastructure. The amount of rebar, the amount of steel that goes into building roads and bridges is a critically important component of developing the market for our taconite and the ultimate steel products. Similarly, we need to change our tax and trade policy. You've been voting to provide more tax breaks for people to move their manufacturing offshore. We need to keep that manufacturing here. That creates more demand for steel here in America. I believe, I know at least Romney, said let Detroit go bankrupt. The president went in and rescued it. I think there's several thousand pounds of steel that goes into the manufacturing and production of every automobile. We need to advance further